Hey, this is Joe Coy, and you are now listening to Moral Beats.
Everybody get down with the brown.
Ako ay Filipino, Kayumanggi ang balat. Kahit tirap sa salapi, meron itong iaangat. Di nyo ito magagapi, kahit sino ang iharap. Pilipinas, isikaw nating lahat. Ilocano to usog, Maranao at iba pa. Luzon, Visayas, Mindanao, dugo namin ay iisa.
Alright, so like I said, right? So right here we can hit each other, right? So he comes and hits me. I'm just gonna move this way, just enough. But look, right? And not only that, make sure you go do and step back and then step forward, right? So we'll do the same thing, right? But now I'm even gonna go like here, half, right? He's gonna move forward, and then right here, right? So that's our style. That's Garimot Arnis, right? But it doesn't mean that we don't do short range either, because when he comes in, I can just trap that and hit him and do all that trapping, right? So that's more of our stylistic things. So and then like I said, the stick, right? When you look at the Filipino martial arts, you always see them doing the stick, right? Well, what does the stick represent? Right? For us, there's actually some styles that have evolved where all they do are sticks. The way they teach is sticks. Because like they would do this where they grab the stick. Well, if it's a blade, I can't do that, right? But they've evolved in the sense like, hey, they probably said like no one carries a sword anymore or a bolo anymore. You can carry a stick. So that's what their style has evolved into. But we've always gone back to the traditional aspect of it. So it represents, the stick represents a bolo, right? And a bolo is a work tool, right? And remember in the beginning where I said there's different styles depending on the islands, right? On the island chain. So you got the north. So for simplicity's sake, right, you have the north, the Visayas, or the Luzon, Visayas, and Mindanao. North, middle, and south. Those are the three main aspects, right? So if you go to the south, where a lot of the influences from India and the Muslim, you have a different style of what they do, and you can tell from their weapons, right? So this is from the south. This is called a kris. And you pull it, see that wave, right? This is from a good friend of mine. This is like I don't know, he said he's like really old. But there's a couple where the wave will go from here all the way to the end. This is kind of like a half wave and then straight. But that's more representative of the south, right?
The south.
Philippines, right? The Mindanao area, right? Now, if you go to the middle, this one was made by Top Prado. He's a retired Philippine. Now this one's actually Philippines. He's a Marine Recon, which is our like SEALs, Special Forces in the Philippines. So, and he did this. This is called the ginunting.
Ooh.
Right?
Juneteenth.
Right? Because if you look at it, it's half of a scissors. Yeah.
Gunting.
Exactly. Right? So that's half of a scissors. Right?
Wow.
That's more like in the middle. And then this too, this one is called a dahon palay, which is like the leaf of the rice. So it's straight. See how it's just straight?
Oh, because they stand up. Oh.
Yeah, right? And that's more for the north. And then this one, this is actually how we kind of like have, when you go out to the province in the north, you'll see people just walking around with this strapped on because that's their work tool. Right? And then that's same thing, it's just straight.
Yeah,
Right?
My great uncle, All of them. I have about 5 of them. They always carry that around with them.
Yeah, so when you're going out in the, out in the mountains, chopping stuff up, protecting yourself, right? But it's a work tool. But now, as you can see, right?
They're just
See?
about the same.
Let's see, even the Juneteenth, same thing, right? See?
So Juneteenth is from what region?
So this is more like from the Negros region, which is like in the Visayas area.
Bisaya.
Yes. And the way this is designed, it's like a chopping tool. If you feel it, it likes to chop. Right? That weight is right there, so it likes to chop. So a lot of this, he actually teaches the Marines so that they have a jungle one that comes in, pop, pop, and then chopping people up. Well, there's still a war over there, so.
So and then you said this one was more Pangasinan region.
Yes, up north. So the Luzon area. Right, and then you can feel it. It's got a different feel to it, different weight.
Yeah. I feel like it's much lighter.
Yeah,
It's meant to go this way, outward.
not so much as chopping, right? And then this one is just a tool, but this one, what it does is it cants your hand more, so then you feel that when you're trying to cut something. So that's what we have weapon-wise, right? And that's how we evolved in here. Obviously, we can't train with this all the time. Otherwise, our training sessions might be cut short. So we do this, right? Also, Philippines is still like a very much a bladed society, right? We like our blades. So I'll actually show you to my son, Michael. He'll show you the famous ones, or when you think of blades in the Philippines, you always think of the balisong, which is the butterfly knife. Balisong is 2 different words. Bali is broken, song is like from the sungay because the scabbard or the hilt is made from usually carabao horn. So, but he'll show you how that kind of works out.
So they can just whip this out, boom.
Yeah.
Right.
It's a concealed weapon basically. It's something that I guess you could say like an assassin might use if somebody had to, for some reason you had to kill somebody. You'd have it closed up, and then you walk by with a quick stab, and then you put it away, and it's like it's not even there.
Yeah. So what he's talking about, right? He can show you the fancy stuff, right? I don't have the dexterity to do the fancy stuff anymore. But the concealed stuff, right? I can have this in my pocket. I'll be walking around with them. I'll open it this way. I'll cut him right there and it closes and I keep walking. What did I do? I walk through here, right? Get that femoral artery, I cut, and I keep walking, put it in my pocket and it's gone.
That's dangerous.
So that's why you don't want to be out there at night, right? But since, we get bored, we are out in the fields and stuff, they start playing around and what can we do with this? So he can show you a little bit of things as far as like manipulating it.
Yeah, it's just like if you've ever seen what's that movie called? I think it's like Superbad. The daughter, like she does this a lot. There's a scene like she's messing with the blade like that, and it's just like it's like if you think about there's a weapon in the Maori warriors use. It's just like a little tool that you can use to spin around and stuff like that. And it's just a little distraction tool, but it's like that's the same kind of feel right here. Because if you're messing around with somebody and you're just like playing around with the blade like this, like they can't really tell what's going on with the blade. That's like exactly what the fancy part of it is.
That could be really intimidating.
Right. So it's one of those, depending on what you're doing. Obviously, if we're actually in a fight, we won't do that. but depends on what you're trying to accomplish, right?
Wow, this is definitely something that I've never discovered or even like learned about the Filipino culture. So that's amazing.
So this one is my personal blade, right? This was given to me when I was ranked high in our system. It's Hantik, which is essentially really the fire ant in the Philippines.
Wow.
So we did some blades, we did some swords, right? Now we'll do some sticks. So we'll start off with the double stick, right? You'll see this all the time. So this one, right? You'll see this all the time. Pa 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 pa. Right? This is more like just for dexterity. This is just an exercise, right? Because if I really want to try to attack him, I will be like pa pa. Right. But as that goes along, this is what I like so much about the Filipino arts. So I showed you on a stick, right? But the exact same process happens with empty hands. So he gives me a jab cross, right? Jab cross, right? Jab cross. See, look, right? Here's 1, 2, 3. Right? There's my lock, there's my kick, there's my drop down.
And all of that, you're not even using a lot of energy. It's just
right. So, exactly. So a lot of it, right? Philippines, way back then, even now, we still tend to be in the shorter end of the scale, right? And then in the Philippines, if you look at the geographically, right, it was a main trading spot, right? So of course we'll have all these traders coming from different countries. Some of them are a lot bigger. So we didn't really want to have it where it's force on force, right? Want to try to figure out a way to end the fight real quick, be able to train someone real quick, and that way they can protect their villages. So espada, sword, daga, knife, right? A lot of it you'll see too because of the Spanish occupation, right? We'll have a lot that says use Spanish terms, right? So espada daga, same thing, right? I can go right here, bam, bam, bam. But it could be like this. As he hits, boom, boom. Right? So there's 2 weapons, right? Right? So now you have the knife and then you have the sword.
So what are the names of the ranks? Like how does the ranking?
So it depends. So in some of the arts, Filipino arts, we kind of follow the Japanese ranking, white belt, yellow belt, all that. In our system, there's only like so many ranks. There's the student, and then there's they call a tito, which is uncles, and then they have ninongs, which is like the highest one before the grandmaster. The grandmaster is called gatpuno, because like the head instructor. And then below that are all the ninongs. There's only like so many ninongs at one time. And then after that you go titos, or uncles, aunties. And then you get the kuyas and ates, like sisters, and then regular level.
Always like nanang.
Yes, for the most part, really, even in our system. And some of our techniques and just the way we do things, like I said, we try not to go force on force, that it lends itself to being used by women, right? But it's a totally complete art. It's not like my background before I actually discovered Filipino arts, which actually it's kind of funny because I didn't study Filipino arts until I got to the U.S. Right?
You would think it would be in the Philippines.
Right.
To start. But I mean, in the Philippines, like you didn't really have any resources to really find out. So.
Right. Usually you'll have them like in a province, and maybe you'll see a maestro that's still teaching, but it's not very common, right? And then when you go to the cities, we're inundated with karate, taekwondo, all this stuff because everyone sees that. one of the best descriptions I've heard of the Philippines is that, you know, it's because of the Spanish rule and the American rule, it's like 400 years of missionary life plus 50 years of Hollywood. So how you put those together, that's how we kind of act, right? So we see everything that's the West, we're like, oh, that's cool, let me try that.
That's why we have a lot of influence
Right.
From here. Wow. So do you think that impacts like the way of our culture? Does it like bury our culture, do you think, the way we are inspired by other cultures?
It does, right? Because especially in our younger generations, especially in the Philippines, right? As we grow up, I know when I was growing up over there, it's the same thing. We see the West, it was like, oh, I want to do that. I remember when, you know, we had relatives or either that was from the States, and they'd come home and they'd bring stuff. And we always say, like, I don't care what you get me as long as it says made in the USA.
Even candy.
Yeah, as long as it says made in the USA, I'm good, right? Because our only view out of the world was through television. There was only like 3-4 channels, and they're all West, right? So, and then a lot of the instructors for Filipino arts, they came in that first round during like early 1900s to do the farming out in California, out in Hawaii. That's where you get a lot of them. And there's a lot of traditions over there as far as linking back to those maestros that came by. But in the Philippines, it's kind of getting less and less. There's a few that's trying to bring it back. I know that at least on our style, in Laguna, there's a big push to keep the arts alive. Every year they have a match, no pads, just straight stick.
Sheesh. Is there like limits? Like, can you hit in the face or?
You can hit anywhere.
Oh God.
Yeah, and there's a referee, of course, just to make sure that, you know, once you get your first hit, they kind of stop it so you don't, you know, if you kind of
overdo it.
Yeah, exactly.
Kill somebody. So I mean, it's anything goes, but just don't kill.
Right.
Because it is the practice of the arts.
Right. And then if they get hit hard, they'd be like, okay, I'm done.
Yeah.
Right?
It's once a year.
Once a year during the fiestas. There's a lot of things that always happens in fiestas.
So that's gonna be in like April then.
I think this one, I want to say this one's is it a June one? For this particular one where they do the fighting.
Okay.
It'd be like, if it's from the south, they call it Kali. If it's from the Visayas region, they call it Eskrima. From the Luzon region, we call it Arnis. But they're all the same. That's why we call it the Filipino martial arts, just an umbrella organization, right? Because for me, that's what I like more about this than anything else, right? It's not necessarily like that I do it to have students, but it's more to keep the culture alive, right?
Wow, that's very powerful. So, being on that topic, keeping the culture alive, how can we do that?
So a lot of it is just the exposure, right? It's kind of hard in here in this respect that there's a lot more Spanish culture over here, right? Just because where we're at. But it could be just practicing arts, right? Researching what you can, like this one, for instance, right? I just found this out. This is the old text from the Philippines, right? So this is actually my last name, Parazo, Padaso.
Is that
Right.
What's the dialect called?
So
Bayan?
this one is called it's not Alibata anymore. It's Baybayin.
Bayan.
Yes,
Yeah.
is what they call it.
So what was it called prior to that?
So they called it Alibata, but I think when they do a little more research and all that, and then they settled on Baybayin.
Bayan.
Yeah.
Wow.
But practicing wise, just researching yourself first. You know, go and
But
see.
is there any kind of like dance with this?
There is. So I'll show you the first one, right? We'll do One stick.
Do you mind if I record?
No, no. But this one is called Moro Moro, right? Moro Moro.
Moro Moro.
It goes back to like right here, Larong Moro Moro.
Moro Moro.
So they do that during, again, of course, during the festivals in the Philippines, during Holy Week. But it's a way to like keep the art going and at the same time kind of like expose it. So first we do the salute, right? Okay, Moro Moro, 1, 2, 3. 2, 3. Travel. 1, 2, 3. Travel. So that one is like the first 3, right? It could just be a presentation, makes it look good. We have like bells so that we do this and it kind of rings and does all that stuff. But it's also a fighting technique, right? Because I go here, I'll go high, I go low, right? He blocks this, right? He blocks this, I go high. So those are entries. So that alone, Moro Moro, is a whole fighting system.